Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in the old home office once again. This time coming to you with our wrap video following Purdue's 61-60 loss at Maryland. Obviously, this is not Maryland, but I'm going to talk about Maryland anyway. You're going to have to excuse me here. I'm literally choking on Chex Mix right now. I just had some Chex Mix earlier, and I have a little piece of Chex or whatever it may be stuck in my throat. So I'm going to tough this out and tell you all about Purdue's 61-60 loss at Maryland. It's brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Union Club Hotel. We thank them very much for their promotional support. Please keep them in mind next time you're planning a trip to campus. So Purdue loses 61-60, their first game as a ranked team this year. This is the Big Ten. This is the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. This is just the Big Ten this year, where you've got this just glob of teams who are all as good as each other, that are going to engage in these rock fights that are going to come down to whoever makes the right play at the right time, whoever makes one more shot than the other team, whoever misses less threes in bulk, whoever turns the ball over less more than the other team. Things like that. Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue won those games because they made the right play at the right time in an otherwise very close game. Tonight, couldn't quite do it. Something to keep in mind here about Maryland. Excuse me, the Chex Mix is coming to get me. Maryland was favored in this game. This was a 50-50 game on Ken Palm. Purdue needed Maryland to miss a bunch of free throws on Christmas Day to beat this team in Mackey Arena. If you were looking at Maryland as a team that hadn't won a Big Ten home game yet this Big Ten season, obviously, as opposed to the Maryland team that won at Wisconsin, that won at Illinois, that won at Minnesota, I think you were getting way ahead of yourselves on Purdue. Purdue's won some really big road games, but they have done it by the absolute skin of their teeth on a number of occasions. And you always had to wonder, hey, is that going to be sustainable? Can they do this every time out? You know, they are playing without Sasha Stefanovic. That is still a big deal. No matter what happened against Minnesota, they're still playing without him. That is a very big deal. Purdue was good enough to win this game, obviously, but not quite good enough to win this game. The turnover thing, keeps getting them. It doesn't matter that they cleaned it up at halftime. The 11 possessions they lost, or the 10, not counting the one at the end there, that didn't matter. The 10 possessions they lost there in the first half really mattered because they took points off the board for Purdue, obviously, but also they got Maryland out in transition quite a bit, allowed Maryland to score when Maryland otherwise was really struggling to score. But this is what the Big Ten is this year. This is this just unbelievably balanced and deep team where it's just going to come down to one or two minor things each time out because almost everybody's as good as everybody else. I'm watching. If I look distracted right now, it's because I'm watching Illinois try to lose to Indiana right now. Illinois is a better team than Indiana, but it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm not sure Purdue's appreciably a better team than Maryland. I know their record is better. I know they beat Maryland head-to-head the first time out, but I think the whole Big Ten, pretty much from 2 to 11, and I'm probably being even generous to Michigan because Michigan's the hardest part of their schedule is coming up, so we're going to find out about them. It's pretty balanced. It's pretty equal, if you ask me, and there's not a whole lot of difference between a lot of these teams that are playing on any given night. And, Purdue was one play away, but Maryland was one play away the last time they played, too. A lot of these games are one play away. Michigan State versus Purdue was one play away. Ohio State versus Purdue was one play away. That's the Big Ten this year, one play away at all times. And things are going to balance out sometimes. So that's kind of my view on this loss. Obviously, Purdue had quite a bit of momentum going. To come out of the Sasha Stefanovic curveball 1 and 2, when you had a chance to be 2 and 1, there's a little bit of disappointment there, but it's better than 0 and 3. And I'll keep telling you that Sasha Stefanovic is a big deal, and this team not having him is a big deal. So getting the Minnesota game at least and competing the way you did at Maryland, that's not the worst outcome that could have come from this by any stretch of the imagination. I think some other things you kind of learn from this game is, not that you necessarily learned them, but I jumped my notes. I thought, for a while there, Purdue was really doing a good job making the right shot at the right time, making the right play at the right time. They just didn't have that tonight. They did, up until they really needed to. Those last two possessions at the end of the second half, where Jaden Ivey missed the three, then Maryland closed off the lane on him. He had to take that tough turnaround. I give Maryland credit defensively for that as much as anything. But also, the first half, Purdue had I don't know how many opportunities, to push that lead out to 8. And the way Maryland was operating offensively, 8 points would have been like 13. There was a three that Brandon Newman got in the final few minutes of the first half that I think would have put Purdue up 8 at that time. Maryland comes back down. Hakeem Hart makes that long 2. And all of a sudden, it goes from 8 to 3, I think. And I thought that was a shot that, had that gone, I think Purdue would have been really in a good position, albeit with a ton of basketball left. But that being said, you're up 7 points with 3:44 to go. That's a great position. That was your biggest lead of the game with 3:44 to go. You just couldn't get stops. And the reason you couldn't get stops was because, the matchup dynamics of this game. I shouldn't eat Chex Mix before rap videos. The lesson learned. The matchup dynamics went both ways here. Travion Williams dominated this game. 23 points on 9 of 12 shooting, 11 rebounds. Zach Edey comes in the second half, really gives Purdue a spark on back-to-back possessions. I think that was the second half. I can't remember. But he got a basket, drew 2 fouls in a couple of minutes. Might have had a second basket in there too. But Purdue's size really mattered in this game. They out-rebounded Maryland 33 to 24. 10 more offensive rebounds. He probably didn't get as much off it as he would have liked. But that portion of the matchup gulf worked for Purdue. It's just Maryland's version or half of the matchup dynamic worked big time for them because, in the second half there, they were switching Travion Williams onto guards. They were posting Purdue's guards with a bunch of their bigger, sturdier, interchangeable guard/forward types, and had a lot of success that way. This is a very difficult team for Purdue to guard. Purdue's a very difficult team for Maryland to guard, but Maryland's a very difficult team for Purdue to guard. I thought Travion Williams did a great job defending Eric Ayala on that last drive. A great job for a big guy to move his feet that way, to contest the shot without fouling. I thought Travion Williams did that as well as you possibly could have. The problem, of course, is when two people come barreling through the lane, you create this natural valley in all the bodies that are there to box out and all that stuff, and it allowed Eric Ayala to bounce right back up, follow his own miss, and then draw a foul. I don't know. I didn't necessarily. I saw him go down. I didn't see who actually fouled him, how hard the contact was, whatever it may be. Purdue seemed a little bit honked off about that foul getting called, but I don't know. But that matchup was very difficult for Purdue to handle in terms of Travion Williams being able to contain their guards when you're switching 5 ways. Very similar to the end of the Michigan game in Ann Arbor last year when Michigan just put Purdue in ball screens left and right, and Purdue just couldn't handle Xavier Simpson getting downhill down in the getting in the lane, getting to the basket, whatever it might have been. That's always a sore spot for teams that play as big as Purdue does, is you're going to have a big guy that you're going to get put in ball screens who's going to be asked to, hang with guards periodically. I think Travion Williams, by and large, has done a much better job with that this year than he ever has. Is he ever going to be I can't even name a great center in ball screen defense right now. That big, because I don't know how many there are who are great at it. But I just don't know. That's never going to be a strength of his. But he's doing the best he can with it. He did great on that last play, but it's always going to be a vulnerability for Purdue. And that's part of the reason why you have this defense built around having people help to close off the lane. Had Ayala driven on his initial surge to the basket, he would have had plenty of help because Purdue was orchestrated around him to close ranks around him and help him with the dribble. But when Ayala backed out of it, Eric Hunter had to vacate to cover the cutter, and I think somebody else had to vacate for some other reason, and that kind of put him out there on an island. And that was a really savvy play by Eric Ayala. I think you have to give him a lot of credit for making a play more than anything. But Trayvon Williams was great in this game. I mean, I thought a couple of weeks ago that the first team All Big Ten at the end of the year was pretty much the easiest call ever. But and I understand I'm saying this after a loss, but if Purdue goes on to have some more success the rest of the season, and they are set up to do that, uh, Travion Williams might get at least one first team All Big Ten vote from this guy right here, because I think he's meant as much to his team as anybody in the conference, and he's been everything Purdue needs him to be. They needed him to dominate this game. He dominated this game. It wasn't quite enough, but he still dominated this game. I think, I'm not going to tell you anything new here, but Jaden Ivey's a star. I mean, he's not just a star later, but he might be a star now. I mean, he's really coming on. He's really a talent unlike almost anything Purdue's had over the years. What he was able to do in the last 7 minutes of this game, getting to the basket and making really difficult plays, gave Purdue a chance in this game. That was largely the reason why Purdue was in the position it was in when it was up 7. I think you have a player here now where when all else fails, you can just throw him a ball screen and he can go do something. And the last time you had that, it was Carson Edwards. And I think this is a freshman who you can now do that with. You don't have to necessarily rely on pristine execution to run some convoluted play or whatever it may be. You can just throw him a ball screen and he'll go do something. And a lot of the time it's going to be positive. Sometimes he's going to miss. Sometimes the defense is going to make a good play like they did on the turnaround he had to miss. On the 3, the shot clock was running down. I mean, I know I'd have liked to have seen him from Purdue's perspective put his head down and just go to the basket, but the shot clock was running down. He did have room. So I'm not going to crucify the kid for that or anything like that, but he's a special offensive talent, and I think Sasha Stefanovic being out, the little bit of silver lining that might come with that is the fact it's really sort of empowered Ivy a little bit more. But down the stretch, Travion Williams and Jaden Ivey were both really good. I think by and large, when you look at the whole game in totality, I think they needed more help. I think obviously Brandon Newman's consistency matters have been well documented, and it got him again. Now, I know Maryland was paying a lot of attention to him. I'm quite certain they were, so that qualifies it a little bit. But he goes 1 of 7 from the floor. Didn't get a lot of great looks. You could use a little bit more consistency, I think, from Eric Hunter. I think Purdue was counting on him this year to be a little bit more of a scorer. When he plays well as a facilitator, it doesn't matter because Purdue's getting what they need out of him. They're getting good offense. What he gives you defensively has really, really high value, but I think that you would like to have that extra scoring option out there, especially when Stefanovic isn't out there. I think Purdue ideally would get a little more consistency from him as well. But just another close game. There's going to be more of them just like this. And at the end of the day, they're going to be coin flips, like Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. Just a bunch of coin flips. That was a weird reference, wasn't it? Yeah. So Purdue's been able to win the coin flips more often than not, but at the end of the day, they are still coin flips, and that's the nature of the Big Ten this year. Purdue came up tails tonight after they come up heads a couple times. The coin's going to fly a bunch more times this year. Winning at Penn State's going to be tough. Winning at Minnesota is going to be tough. Winning versus Wisconsin and Mackey Arena is going to be tough. There's a tough road ahead, even though Purdue's got what looks like a reasonable path here the rest of the way. I think Wisconsin's the only ranked team right now left on the schedule. Even if it looks good on paper, the Big Ten is not a paper league. Maryland was 0-4 at home in the Big Ten. Doesn't mean Maryland's a pushover. Minnesota was whatever they were, 0-4 on the road. Doesn't mean they're a pushover by any means. Purdue had won 3 Big Ten road games in a row. That doesn't mean that they were going to automatically win their next one. It's not a paper league. It just isn't this year. And every game's going to be a grind, and it's going to come down to that one play. Maryland made that one play tonight. Purdue didn't. Maryland wins. Purdue will try to make that one more play the next time they play. That'll be Northwestern on Saturday. That one might not quite be a coin flip, like I said, but Purdue's still sitting in a really good spot here. If you would have been asked, 7-5 without the Nebraska game, with all the tumult Purdue's dealt with Ivy's foot, Hunter's knee, Stefanovic's COVID. Did I just flip you off? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Stefanovic's COVID and Ethan Morton's mono. You would take that in a heartbeat. Illinois and Indiana tied at 66, 42 and a half seconds to go. There you go. That's the Big Ten for you right there. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reading. And thank you to the Purdue Union Club Hotel for your support. We appreciate it. We will talk to you again on Saturday after Purdue plays the Fighting Wildcats Northwestern. Thanks, everybody.